Hello, I'm Nitya Malin from Authenticity Coaching and the Keys to the Kingdom coaching program for men. So today I want to address a very important topic, and that is, why does she say no to sex and what can you do about it? So this is a very common scenario that I hear a lot about over the years, and lots of men find themselves in this situation with a partner who is saying no to sex, sometimes for a very long time, for years and decades. And I'm not speaking for every woman in this world, of course, and not for every relationship. But if you find yourself in this situation, I guarantee that if you listen and watch and apply the things that I'm sharing with you today, you're going to see change. So, first of all, the four areas that are really important to be aware of here when your partner is not really doesn't seem to be open to sex, says no to sex and intimacy. So first of all, the most important thing to be aware of here is your level of connection and trust and emotional transparency and the way you connect in your relationship. Okay? So that is the point number one, and that's something that is probably not really quite where it needs to be at. And the second point is that the way you've been having sex until now with your partner is probably not the kind of sex that is fulfilling for her. Point number three is that there's something going on with the polarity in your relationship. So we have masculine and feminine polarity in all relationships. And what can happen is that you become very good friends or you become great parents, but somehow you've lost the energy of the masculine and the feminine, the man and the woman in your relationship. And my fourth point is that she might have experienced some kind of trauma, which is very, very common. And she might not feel comfortable in her body and in her own skin, so that she struggles with herself and with her own challenges in this respect. So let's go into all of these four. So firstly, the first point, your level of connection and your ability to communicate on an emotional level with your partner is probably not where it could be. Because let's face it, we haven't learned this very well when we grew up. So this is something that we all need to learn to work on. And for a man, it's more likely that you might not be as comfortable or familiar with speaking in emotional terms and connecting with your emotions and expressing yourself in a way that your woman can feel that you're really with her. You may be spending a lot of time thinking about work and taking a lot of responsibility for the family and for the relationship and really doing your best at being a great man and partner. But in that process, maybe you are missing out on the emotional connection in the day-to-day that is so important for her to feel connected with you, to feel seen and to feel heard and to feel that you are both close and in love. Because if she's not feeling that, she's likely to not be ready to open with you to further intimacy. Because for the feminine, she needs the connection and the emotional connection before she can open up to sex. For the masculine, it's quite often the opposite, that you quite often like sex in order to open up to deeper emotions. So that's a point to be really aware of. And the second point, so that's about the sex, the kind of sex that you've been having with your partner. And this is this can be a touchy subject, and I realize that all of the things I'm sharing with you here today, can be confronting or triggering even for you to hear. And I'm not here to put the blame on the men. I love men and I work with men, and I adore my male clients, and I adore men who have come to the point of being ready to hear these things. And this is not about putting anyone down, but more about finding our way in a world that's still evolving, and where we are still have so much to learn and so much to grow and discover in order to be able to work and function better in relationships. So the kind of sex that you've been having is very likely the kind of sex that we are sold in this culture. In the predominant sex culture that we live in, the sex that you see and hear about, predominantly from porn, is designed by men and for men. And it's based on the male arousal model. And much less is known about female sexuality and what really works for the feminine. And even more mysterious is the female sexual potential that is very, still we don't know much about, because most women have had to fit into the male model with their men, because the men were not at the point of being able yet to go with her arousal wave. They were not ready to be able to match her sexually. So most women haven't had a chance to experience their full sexual potential because they've been with men who were not ready for this yet, just because they had not been shown this, they had not been taught this, they had not had access to this kind of information that I'm sharing with you here. So the kind of sex that you've been having is very likely very orgasm focused. A lot of people see orgasm as the goal of sex. And as a man, you very often take responsibility for delivering the orgasms for your partner. And while this can seem like a great thing, and I also really acknowledge you for that, this can also be what's holding you back in a way. It can become the obstacle to evolving sexually, because when you're focusing on the orgasm as the goal, you enter like a transactional type of sex that's goal oriented. And when you're goal oriented, you are not in the present moment. And when it comes to the sex that is the next level of sex that I'm talking about today, which is not the sex that we fed in the mainstream culture, but it is the sex that is more tantric, more spiritual, and that is aligned with the female potential, the feminine potential for sexual pleasure. And that is still undiscovered by so many men. And as a man, you have so much to gain and benefit from learning this, and from starting to explore on how you can learn to go on the female wave of arousal, which is very different to the male arousal. So just a quick view on that. The male arousal curve goes very sharp up to the peak and then down again. Yeah, after ejaculation, arousal goes down, and you also feel the depletion of energy in most cases. So the female arousal is very different. It's like an undulating wave that goes higher and higher and higher indefinitely. And you can learn to go on this wave with her. But most men haven't learned that yet, and most women haven't really had a chance to explore their wave because they've been with men who were used to this. So the women had to learn to fit into the male arousal pattern in order to get something out of sex. Now imagine if this is the way it is, which is the way it is for a lot of women in the world, and this is the kind of sex that you've been having, where you've been working on trying to give her an orgasm or more, and as soon as she's had her orgasm, you come. So that's the kind of sex that most people have. And this is the kind of sex that this is the kind of sex that most people have, and that for a lot of women becomes unfulfilling after a while. It becomes unfulfilling because it is not natural for her. And it might be great at the beginning of the relationship, but as time goes on, after having kids or after some years, towards perimenopause, all of a sudden this sex doesn't work for her anymore. And she might not know why, because she hasn't experienced her full potential sexually. But somewhere within her, she feels and she knows that the kind of sex you've been having is not it. Okay, so the next point is your polarity in the relationship. So, very often, your polarity between the masculine and the feminine can shift, and that happens very easily when we get into daily life. We are parents, we're taking care of kids. That is the primary focus of the relationship. There's no time and energy to devote to each other and to the relationship. And we're very busy with work and just taking care of parents and family and friends and associates and everything. So very often the woman can get into a masculine energy because she has a lot to do, a lot to focus on, and the man can also go into a feminine energy where he's kind of and this can happen very easily if you're getting repeatedly rejected by a woman in sex, because this can have a really strong impact on you as a man in your sense of your masculine self and strength. If she's repeatedly saying no to you, it's very easy to fall into the pattern of losing that drive, losing that confident masculine oomph when you're approaching her, so you can become more of a little boy, more in a feminine energy where you're kind of waiting and hoping for her to open up to you. So one way or another, it's very easy to lose that polarity in the relationship. And when we lose that polarity, that's when the sexual attraction also goes out the window. So that's the third point. And the fourth point that I wanted to share is a little bit about is when the woman herself has some issues that she's carrying with her from the past, maybe from her childhood or from previous relationships, where she struggles with connecting with her own body. She might struggle with connecting with her pleasure. She might feel shame or disconnection in regards to her body, her femininity, her sexuality. She might have suffered trauma, and this is something that then of course has an influence, and where she might more easily than others feel that she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want to go there because it brings up too much negative or difficult emotions for her to deal with. So many men are aware of this with their partner, and they can often, have that insight. This is what I've heard from speaking with a lot of men about this, in regards to that she has some issues, she has some problems, she doesn't love her body, and you so much want to help her to overcome those things. But what I want to share with you here today is that if you're focusing on that she has an issue and that you want to help her fix that issue so that the two of you can be intimate and have sex again, that focus is very often not going to work if you're coming from that place. So I'm now going to share with you what you can do about this. So if you find yourself in this situation, be aware of the things I've already shared with you here. And the things you can do to change this situation is to do your own personal work. To do your own work, to work on yourself. Not to focus on trying to change her or try to fix her or try to entice her or excite her or flatter her or bribe her to want to have sex with you, because that's most likely not going to work, and she's just going to feel pressured and resentful towards you. So it's very easy to become overly focused on her when you're in this situation. And it's also that what then happens is that you start to feel dependent on her for your fulfillment. You start to feel needy, and nobody likes to feel needy. It's not a nice place to be in, but it very easily happens when you're with a partner who says no to you. I totally relate to that, and I acknowledge you for that. That is a very difficult situation to be in for a man, especially when that goes on for weeks, months, years, and decades, which is very often the case. So, when you do the inner work, your own personal work, to authentically face yourself and work on yourself, this is your best chance to turn things around. And most importantly, to start to give back to yourself what you've been missing in this relationship. To start to focus on yourself, because you are not getting anything in that respect from your partner. You might be having a great friendship, you might feel love, and you might be getting along in many other ways, for sure. But when it's coming to sex and intimacy, you're not being met. So that is a very difficult situation to be in for a long time. And this is why doing your personal work is like bringing the love back to yourself, so you can start to fill your own cup. And how can you do this? Yeah, easier said than done, but there's actually lots of things you can do here. And I want to share with you the most important ways that I've found that you can start to do this work for yourself and turn this pattern around where you feel like you're missing out, you're feeling needy, you're feeling resentful, you might feel lots of different emotions triggered by your partner not being open to you sexually and intimately. So forget about trying to change her or trying to fix her or trying to work on her. First of all, start to work on yourself. So what can you do? First of all, learn to start to acknowledge and be aware of your own emotions. To feel your own emotions in your own body. To be able to identify them and name them. And learn how to process emotions through your body. So this is not about distracting yourself or suppressing your emotions or putting on a brave face. This is about facing the emotions and feeling the energy of the emotions in your body fully so that you can let go of them on a daily basis. This is important work, it's deep work. And the second point is to start to practice expressing yourself and sharing your emotional truth and your deeper truth vulnerably and openly and in a heartfelt way. So this is something that men traditionally in our culture have not learned. So we are pioneers. Our generation are pioneers in learning this. So there's nothing to feel bad about here. Rather be proud of yourself for being here, for having arrived at this point where you are ready to start to look into this and find ways that you can start to do the inner work to empower yourself, regardless of what will happen with your partner and you and your relationship. Start to give it back to yourself by learning the vital skills to thrive in life, so that you are not dependent on your partner to give it all to you. So find ways to learn how to speak from your heart and share your feelings authentically, rather than just talking about life from a logic perspective. And to speak from a heartfelt place is a journey to be learned, and I'm not going to cover all that today, but it's got to do with being here and now in this moment and speaking about what you're experiencing and what's happening in this moment, rather than other things at other times and other places in the future or in the past. Bring it back to here and now and share what's happening right now. And another thing that's really important when you want to work on this, let me have a quick look at my points here actually, because I did take some notes just so that I don't miss anything. Yes, the next point is to strengthen your masculinity. Yes, so how can you do that? And there's so many different ways that you can do that. So what first comes to mind for me is to start to take responsibility for everything when it comes to you. Take responsibility for your results, for your non-results. Take responsibility for your emotions, for your sexual energy and your desire and your passion. Start to practice, if you're not already, to make decisions, to make clear decisions. And practice taking action. Practice being an action taker, and get into your body and get into really physically into your body so that you can build your masculine strength and your testosterone levels, which thrive and blossom when you do physical exercise, especially high intensity exercise builds that kind of strength within you. It's about goal setting, direction, and hanging out with guys that are positive men. You know, join a men's circle, a high quality men's circle, when you can talk with and share with and learn from men who are, you know, maybe have a bit more experience than you when it comes to these things. So hang out with good men, okay? Men that you look up to and, you know, and wanna be like, wanna hang out with, wanna share with. Yeah. So to strengthen your masculinity is super important here, because like I mentioned before, when you're in a dynamic where you are not being met on an intimate level, it's very easy to feel that your masculine is being somehow devalued or not appreciated. So that's why it's so important that you, from your side, from within yourself, work on strengthening and building your masculine strength. And then we come to the very important topic, which is the stuff that I work a lot with my clients, and that is when it comes to your learning how to work with your sexual energy directly. And this is also where there's not much known in our mainstream culture, where the ancient traditions like the Taoists and Tantrics, they knew a lot about this. So, like I mentioned before, the mainstream sex is very much focused on orgasm focused sex, on the male arousal model. And this kind of sex, if this is the kind of sex that you've had, if you've masturbate and ejaculate frequently, if you always ejaculate when you have sex, then you're depleting yourself energetically and you're keeping yourself stuck in the very first level of sex. This is the sort of primary instinctual level of sex, which we don't really have to learn. We're just kind of born with this. And while there's nothing wrong with that kind of sex, it is limited, and there's so much more to discover and explore, especially if you want to learn to match the feminine sexual potential. You need to get yourself out of that first level of sex, because as long as you are ejaculating every time you have sex, you won't know what's on the other end of that. So this is where sex energy cultivation comes in. So without saying too much about this today, because it is a big topic, what is of the essence here is learning to work with your sexual energy so that you're building it and you're cultivating the energy rather than just building it and depleting it. Building and depleting, which is the pattern that most men are in. And that is also, unfortunately, the pattern that porn has programmed you to, to continue. This is what porn is based on, making you want to ejaculate over and over and over again. So that is the trap that you need to get out of if you want to learn to build your sexual power and also build your own personal self-empowerment. Because when you don't waste your sexual energy but you learn to build it and circulate it in your body, you will reap lots of different positive benefits. Higher energy levels is a first one for sure. Also more mental clarity, more willpower, more inspiration and willingness and lust for life in general, more creativity, more inspiration, more purpose, and of course the ability to make love for as long as you want, which for most men, they haven't maybe yet ventured into what is possible there. To have 20-minute sex is seen as something kind of normal, and where it's important to know that for the feminine, the juiciest orgasms and the juiciest orgasmic states, I should say, they happen well into the second hour of lovemaking. And if you're a man who is attached to ejaculating every time you masturbate and have sex, you most likely don't last that long. So this is where sex energy cultivation is so important, because that's where you learn to work with your sexual energy. So you can move away and move beyond that pattern of habitual ejaculation, and you learn to circulate your energy to give you all those amazing benefits that I just mentioned, as well as, now listen to this, orgasms without ejaculation. So this is absolutely possible, and you can definitely learn this. And this is what is so important, because when you learn to have orgasms without ejaculation, the attachment to ejaculation kind of disappears, which means you'll be able to make love in a way that is timeless, that is not focused on reaching somewhere or quickly getting her somewhere so that you can let go. So this completely transforms the way you make love. It's not about times that you have sex anymore. It completely takes away that transactional, goal-oriented focus of sex, and it brings you into the present moment and into timeless lovemaking. So deeply within, the feminine knows this, even if she hasn't experienced this. And she knows that short-lived, orgasm-focused, goal-oriented, transactional sex is not fulfilling for her. So that's a big one. That's a really big one. And the next step that I want to address here also in what you can do about this situation when you start to work on this is really to, which what I just said will naturally lead you to, and that is sacred tantric lovemaking, which is not goal-oriented, but is timeless, and it takes you on the wave where you can go higher and higher and higher and higher with your partner for as long as you want. This lovemaking is also not dependent on youthful hormones. It's sustainable lovemaking that can last as long as you will live. Whereas the orgasm-focused sex will only last for a certain amount of time. It has a natural use by date by middle age for most people. So if your woman has experienced trauma, if she's closed down due to struggling with self-acceptance, maybe she's of an attachment type that is naturally likes to keep herself a little bit distant. She doesn't feel safe, very close and very intimate. Then it's an ultimate approach to be able to make love in this tantric way that I just described, because it is so female and feminine friendly, because it is in its essence, it is deeply healing. In its essence, it is so based on love and compassion and acceptance and healing, which the excitement-based, orgasm-focused sex not necessarily gives us. On many occasions, it can actually compound stress and trauma and make things worse in that aspect. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. So don't jump to the last point, to the tantric sex straight away. Start from the beginning and start to work on yourself and give the energy back to yourself that you so deeply deserve. You're amazing, and if the situation you've been in has led you to believe that in any way you're lacking, I want you to know that you're not. You've got everything that you need within you. You've got infinite possibilities to explore and discover within yourself. And I really hope that this has inspired you today to go on the journey, to explore and give back to yourself in order to strengthen your own well-being, your own confidence, your own happiness in yourself, which will in turn strengthen your natural magnetism and polarity in your relationship and equip you with the tools to meet your woman where it is more natural for her to connect on her level, on her wave. So thank you so much for watching today. Please subscribe and like and comment, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. And I will talk to you soon again. Okay, bye.